Have you ever had that gut-wrenching feeling that something terrible was about to happen to someone you love? That primal instinct that we get that makes us just want to build walls around that person to protect them. But what if your desperate attempts to protect that person becomes the very thing that destroys them? A seasoned detective, David Reynolds, was sitting at his desk on a Tuesday morning, just an ordinary Tuesday. He had 23 years of police work that he's put in. And those years, he's learned that he should follow the facts, trust in the evidence. But nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to see on a USB drive that appeared on his desk that morning. You see, sometimes life doesn't just throw us curveballs. It hands us a ticking time bomb. And that's exactly what David was holding in his trembling hands. Evidence that his beloved younger brother, Thomas, a high school teacher, loved by all of his students and co-workers, would commit murder in exactly 30 days. The surveillance footage was pristine. It's like it was almost too clear that the person wanted David to witness and see every exquisite detail in what was going down at that mall. The timestamp, 9:47, Gateway Mall, June 15th. Thomas enters the frame. David notices his brother's movements are a little different though, mechanical, purposeful. A teenage girl sits in a corner alone, wearing headphones, completely unaware. David had watched this part about 100 times, hoping, searching, reaching for some reason that points towards this not being his brother Thomas. But it was Thomas's walk. It was Thomas's profile. It was Thomas's hand reaching into the jacket. As a detective, David couldn't just shrug this off. Think about your own siblings for a moment, or someone who you hold close that would be considered a sibling to you, even if not related by blood. Those shared secrets, those inside jokes, unspoken promises. David and Thomas, their bond was even stronger than that. It was like a tree growing through concrete. Their relationship had been strengthened by hardship. David had raised Thomas since their parents' accident, morphing from big brother to parent overnight at the age of 12. Every scraped knee, every nightmare, every triumph, they went through it all together. But watching that future footage, their unbreakable bond began to feel like quicksand, pulling David down into the darkness with every struggling attempt to save his brother. David tried to show his brother the footage, but the only thing Thomas was able to see was a static screen. David even tried explaining to Thomas what he sees on the footage, but Thomas laughed it off and called it madness. Like magic, the contents of what was on that footage was only able to be seen by David, no one else. And trying to track where this footage came from only wasted the precious time that seemed to not stop from ticking down. He watched Thomas grade papers in his apartment the same way he watched his brother do his homework 20 years ago. Every red mark on a student's paper was like a warning sign to David. Every call Thomas made became suspicious. Was he really staying late for these student conferences, or was something darker brewing? David even logged Thomas's daily routines in his notebook, more like a stalker rather than a brother. The first threads of brotherhood began to unravel. 3 a.m., David found himself watching the footage again, frame by frame, over and over. It became an obsession. The way Thomas's shoulders tense before the act, the slight head turn, checking for witnesses. David had seen this type of behavior countless amount of times in perpetrator footage. The perpetrator's assessment before the strike. How had he never noticed these tendencies in his younger brother before? Or had Thomas always been this good at hiding it? Day 10. We've all written something that we wish we can take back. Something like an angry email, a harsh text message in the moment. But David wrote something far worse. An anonymous report detailing every minor teaching incident in his younger brother's Thomas's career. A raised voice during exam week, a closed door when talking to a student, a private tutoring session that lasted a little bit too long. The school board investigation lasted forever. Even though Thomas was cleared, the whispers started. Students who lingered after class to talk to their favorite teacher now hurried quickly. Teachers who would gossip around Thomas now kept their words to themselves. At their weekly dinner, Thomas barely touched his food, a tradition that the two brothers held ever since their parents' death that kept them connected more than ever. Now felt like an interrogation. "Remember teaching me to ride a bike?" Thomas asked suddenly. The memory hit David like a physical blow. His little brother Wobbly's first moves, his hands on the bicycle seat. "You promised you'd never let go." The words hung in the air like smoke. David approached destroying Thomas's engagement like a surgeon with a god complex, methodically severing every healthy connection, convinced he was doing what needed to be done, even as his brother's happiness flatlined beneath his instrument. David crafted evidence that pointed towards Thomas cheating on his fiancée. Kate left him. David watched through surveillance cameras as his little brother Thomas wandered through Gateway Mall, their old weekend hangout, where David once taught Thomas how to talk to girls. Now Thomas haunted the food court like a ghost, grading papers for hours alone. David started drinking, not the social kind, the kind that burns away memories. Empty whiskey bottles lined his windows. Every security camera footage that showed his brothers sent his heart racing. Past and future began to blur like watercolors in the rain. See, time was running out for David. He felt as if he destroyed his brother's life, then that future that he saw couldn't possibly exist. He didn't do this out of hate. He convinced himself he was doing this out of love. Day 25. The failed drug plant was desperation in its purest form. David's hands were shaking so bad that he dropped the evidence twice. Drunk and not thinking straight, he failed to wipe his tracks and the drugs were traced back to him. His captain didn't just take his badge. He looked at David with the same concerned look that David reserved for suspects who were losing touch with reality. His apartment walls disappeared under photos, timelines, red string, connecting innocent moments into sinister patterns. Their mother's last words, "Take care of each other," echoed like mockery. The clock on his wall ticked so loudly, he finally smashed it, but he could still hear the ticking in his head. 8:30. The mall's fluorescent lights hummed. Every step echoed. The security camera spotted Thomas entering. 9:15 p.m. Shoulders hunched over the weight of 30 days of suspicion. David's brother, the one who'd given graduation speeches, the one who stayed late helping students, the one who still sent funny memes at night, had become a shell of himself. This was it. Everything that David tried to stop was about to unravel right before his eyes, but it was different this time. This time, David wasn't looking through a camera. David was able to do something about it. The final day, the final moment arrived like a guillotine's blade. Gateway Mall, 9:47 p.m. The mall security camera tracked Thomas's approach. Every step perfectly identical to the video now. Same rhythm, same purpose. David's phone played the clip one last time as he got into position. The girl was already there, headphones in, just like as he's seen in the video. Everything aligned as he's seen in the video, except this time, he wasn't watching through a screen. He could stop it. Time ticking down like a heartbeat. A brother's confused face. A teenage girl's startled look. A hand reaching into a jacket. A gun rising. The gunshots echoed through the mall like thunder. But what fell wasn't a body. It was 30 years of trust, destroyed and shattered by 30 days of fear. The jewelry box that clattered to the floor contained their mother's lost locket. Thomas's surprise to his big brother for his birthday. The truth shattered David's world in an instant. His trembling fingers mustered up enough courage, enough strength to press play on the video just one last time. But this time, the video played something very different. His phone glitched, and it showed 4 security camera feeds all at once. Camera 1, Thomas reaching into his jacket. Camera 2, a flash of metal above. Not a gun, but a maintenance worker's wrench slipping from the ceiling fixture. Camera 3, a dark figure watching Thomas. David himself, gun raised. Camera 4 showing the timestamp, but not just showing the timestamp of 9:47 p.m., but cycling through the dates. The same scene playing out again and again. Different brothers, different guns, different victims, all trapped in the same cycle of distrust. The jewelry box lay at his feet. Inside, a letter handwritten by Thomas. Found it at last. Our mother's lost locket. Thank you for protecting me all these years. She would want you to have this. Through his tears, David finally saw the full truth. The USB drive hadn't been warning him about his brother Thomas. Every prevention attempt, every intervention had been pushing David closer, has been orchestrated by the puppet master controlling David, pushing him to become the very monster he feared. You see, sometimes the most dangerous prophecies aren't the ones forced upon us by fate. They're the ones we fulfill through our own fear. You see, David spent so long trying to protect Thomas from a fictional future that he'd destroyed their actual present. So I ask you, what would you do if you could prevent a tragedy? How far would you go to protect someone you love? And at what point does protection become destruction? Sometimes the real test isn't about preventing the future. It's about trusting the present. And somewhere right now, someone's clock is ticking, and they have to make the same choice as David. Trust or fear? Which would you choose?